Will everyone please join me in Gassho and recite the Nembutsu with me. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming to kind of a cold and what's going to probably be a rainy day today. So I would like to first remind all of us that this coming week is probably a very big holiday for lots of people, and probably one of the reasons why we're missing some folks in the Hondo today. That would be Thanksgiving, which is one of my favorite holidays, as it's a time for family and friends to get together and eat wonderful food and to spend quality time with one another. But today, actually, for the Dharma School talk, I'd actually like to once again go back to the theme that we've been exploring in regards to what the Dharma School topic theme is for the whole year, and that is karma. Karma, the literal meaning of action and reaction, or cause and effect. So, Dharma School students, I'd actually like to share with you a story about myself when I was your age in high school. And then the question will be, was what happened karma? So all of you will get to hear a story about when I was much younger in high school and probably not as wise, probably not so wise as I am now, but whether I'm wise now is up for debate. But, okay, so here's the story. I was a very energetic high schooler. And I have a really good friend in high school named Jackson. And I wanted to play a prank on him. Do you high schoolers still do pranks? No? Okay, that's good, don't do pranks. But I wanted to play a prank on my best friend Jackson. So I got a cup of ice, and I snuck up behind him, and I opened the back of his shirt, and I poured the ice down his back. Now Jackson is actually much bigger than I am, so he could beat me up if he wanted to. So I immediately started running. I turned around and ran the other way. And I was kind of looking behind me to see if he was running after me. And I didn't see in front of me, and someone had just, opened the door to come outside, and I slammed into the door. And then Jackson started laughing at me very hard behind my back. So, Dharma School students, I ask you this question. Was what happened to me karma? So the Buddhist answer to this question is yes and no. So, no, because there wasn't some spiritual god or, entity out there that caused that to happen, right, to punish me for doing what I did. On the other hand, I was so consumed with playing a prank on my best friend that I didn't pay attention to where I was running, and I was distracted, and I was arrogant and filled with victory, that I did not pay attention when the door opened in front of me as I was not looking. So in a sense, one could say that I was the cause of my own destruction. So in that way, it is karma. So this is actually where we explore this topic of karma, cause and effect. Lots of times when we grow up and when we have conflict in life, we like to assign blame. We like to say it's your fault or it's this other person's fault, or and we say that it's this person made me do something, right? I was, this person, when sometimes you hear when a person loses a match or something, they'll say, the sun was in my eyes, or they'll say that, I didn't get the right type of gasoline in the car, for a race or something like that, right? Or the pit crew didn't change out my tires quick enough or something, right? So, when we lose or when something, sort of negative happens to us, our first instinct is to blame others, okay? And when this happens, right, we only push ourselves further away from true reality of the Dharma. part of the responsibility lies on us, of course. Now, this doesn't mean, right, of course I'm going to preface this or say that when violence occurs on us, or when something like, when a person intentionally harms us, right, I'm not assigning blame to you, right? I'm not saying that, if a person receives like physical bodily harm, right, like you deserve that, or like, you're part of the problem, right? So I'm not saying that, of course. However, I am also saying that for me, for example, I did not a very nice thing, and I knew that it was not a very nice thing, right? I intentionally knew it was not a very nice thing. So when that other reactive thing happened to me, I knew that I was partially to blame. Okay? So this is where I want us to sort of have this mindset. And the reason for this is because it's going to be Thanksgiving soon, and we're going to be getting together with family, probably extended family. And as we all know, when you have that many kids or that many people inside one room at one time, it could lead to some conflict sometimes. And we have to sort of steer ourselves, get ourselves to, to take sometimes some deep breaths and take some step backs. And I am, by the way, reminding myself of this message just as much as I'm reminding you. If anything, I'm telling this to myself even more so, because as I have admitted to this congregation time and time again, I have a very low patience threshold. Right? So you all probably know that, I've told you stories about when I get stuck in traffic, or when there's a long line, or when, or when someone inconveniences me, right? With that notion in mind, this is the type of deluded and self-centered behavior and thinking that causes me my suffering in the first place, right? So again, I'm not talking about when, horrible violence occurs, right? So when, when a bunch of Palestinians get killed, right? And I'm not blaming them. I'm not saying, well, they're partially to blame for this mess, right? I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying, like, okay, if we have to be introspective or self-reflective in this. If we knowingly do something or say something that we know is hurtful, and we ourselves get hurt, we have the wherewithal and the mental capacity to sort of think about those things, to make those decisions, to think about this critically. As we get further along into the year, and we think about this concept of karma, right? We have to ask ourselves, why do I do the things that I do? Why do I make the choices that I make? The Buddha Dharma teaches us that all of our decisions, all the things that we do, have a rippling effect, whether you see it or not. Your bad mood might affect another person, who will then affect another person, who will then affect another person. And I'm not standing up here saying that I expect everyone to just sit still and sit in fear and and not do anything or not make any decisions. What I am saying is that the Buddha Dharma teaches us that we have to be willing to learn and to also take constructive criticism. This is especially for me. When someone tells me I didn't do a good job, or when someone tells me that I made a mistake, it's very easy for me to get a defensive reflex. Even something as simple as the martial art that I do, Aikido. The martial art that I do is not supposed to be competitive. And sometimes it's still easy for us to get into competition of strength and trying to dominate the other person. And we go through this on a daily basis. But Dharma School students, this is why I'm addressing this message specifically to you. Because many of you are becoming of age and are thinking about college soon, thinking about leaving the house and starting this journey solo in your lives. And when you think about that, I want you to think about the actions that you take. You will, all of you, myself, we've all experienced this, we'll make mistakes. It's inevitable. But when we make mistakes, or when we choose wrong, the important thing is to own up to it and to accept it and to work on doing better. Instead of drowning ourselves in explanations or defenses or trying to come up with legal arguments in our mind as to why we are right and the other person is wrong, perhaps there is another way of approaching the situation. Perhaps there is a way of accepting your part in the shared conflict. With this in mind, karma can actually teach us the lessons of how to live. Karma is not there to punish us. Remember, I said that before. Karma is not there to punish us. It's not there to bring down this divine judgment onto you. Karma is there to guide us. Karma is there to help us learn, to help us do better. Not to, give us these punishments, but to actually assist us in continuing to walk forward. If we run and we trip over a rock, karma teaches us, oh, I should look down every once in a while. The same thing when we look at mirrors, in the car. With this in mind, karma is a wonderful tool that teaches us that our actions will have effects. We cause a lot of effects around us. So with this in mind, I would like us all to think about what those effects are. And the Buddha Dharma teaches us that karma is there to guide us and show us the way. So Dharma School students, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday ahead of you. I'm certain you have many plans to see family, to eat lots of food, or to help with hosting duties. And especially to Dharma School students, take this time to help your parents out. Seriously. Truth be told, I'm hosting both sides of my family this coming week, and I never appreciated how hard my parents worked until I had to do it myself. So start now. You'll build up a tolerance to it. Please join me in Gassho and repeat the Nembutsu with me. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo. Will you all please join me in Gassho as I read the words of our founder, Master Shinran Shun. Second is Amida's directing of virtue for our return to this world. This is the benefit we receive, the state of benefiting and guiding others. It arises from the vow of necessary attainment of the rank next to Buddhahood, also known as the vow for the attainment of Buddhahood after one lifetime. Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo.
Good morning again, everyone.
Good morning, Sensei.
I see that we have quite a few people who are first-timers of this temple, so thank you all very much for taking time out of your busy holiday schedule to join us today. Before I get into the meat of my Dharma talk, I'd like to actually give a little bit of an explanation of what you're probably seeing for those of you who have stepped through the doors for the first time. Firstly, you'll notice that at our temple, we place our hands together as such, and we say what's called Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu translates as to I take refuge in the Buddha of infinite light and infinite life. This is because we are eternally and overwhelmingly grateful for the wisdom and compassion coming from the realm of nirvana, guiding us in our daily lives, but also assuring us birth after we die in the Pure Land. This means that we become one with the realm of nirvana. This means that once we die in this lifetime, we become fully awakened Buddhas in the world of Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. This means also that we return to this world as fully awakened Buddhas to guide others there. Not necessarily as ghosts or spirits, but as the memories and the everlasting imprints we leave on this world. And the fact that when we do pass away, we teach probably the final, most important lesson to those who are still there. One of my favorite moments in all of television is when Keanu Reeves was being interviewed by Stephen Colbert. And, you know, Keanu Reeves is a pretty spiritual person, right? He leans towards Buddhism. And one of the best quotes and one of the best questions that he was asked by Stephen Colbert was, well, what do you think happens after we die? And he was expecting some probably like real religious and like, you know, spiritual answer and things like that. But Keanu kind of deeply contemplated the message, and he said, I know that the ones who love us will miss us. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately, because the past 2 weekends I've had to do 2 memorial services for a couple of the more prominent, a couple of the longtime families of the Tacoma Buddhist temple. And it really made me think about all of the relatives from my past who are now gone. And now that my parents are here, you know, it made me think about the gathering of Thanksgiving as well. You know, on my mom's side of the family and my dad's side of the family, we would have these really big Thanksgiving gatherings. It was huge. First, we would go to my mother's side on the actual day of Thanksgiving to El Cerrito, California. That's near Berkeley, by the way. And we would have the Hiromoto family gathering. So there'd be all these people, all these aunties and uncles just, you know, sitting around on chairs, eating lots of food, talking and catching up on life. And then we'd have to go back home to Sacramento. And then the very next day, we'd get together with my father's side of the family, which is equally as big. And, you know, we would I would have like 2 different turkeys, right, you know, all this time. It was amazing. And, you know, we would all get together and then, you know, celebrate. I had a lot of cousins too. It was so much fun getting together with all of these cousins. But now things are different. And as Buddhism teaches us, change is inevitable. You know, as the life turns, things don't remain the same forever. And if there's something that we as unenlightened beings sort of cling to or that we have a hard time with, it's when that change occurs. And when the time, you know, things are not the same as they used to be. And this can cause us distress sometimes. I haven't been able to go to my Hiromoto side Thanksgiving for a good while. But even with the last time that I did, it was really eye-opening for me. Because I looked around the room and I could see that there were many empty chairs. Because many of the great aunts and uncles, the Nisei, the second generation Japanese Americans, were no longer with us. And they had passed away. Also, there were many other cousins who were not able to attend due to work commitments, right? Things are easy when we're children. We're able to come to these, we don't have jobs. You know, we're coming to these gatherings and able to spend all this fun time with each other. But now, because of work and our various lives, we may not be able to attend these family gatherings anymore. And I couldn't help but feel a little bit sad about this. And it made me think about the time, especially when I was doing the memorial service for one of these families and reading the biography of one of these members. It's like, man, he sounds like one of my great uncles who used to come to these family gatherings. For those of you who are not familiar, Japanese American men, especially Nisei men, are not known for being really talkative. So, you know, they're not known for saying a lot. They're known for sitting and being contemplative and not really sharing so much with words, but they share with actions. And yet, at the same time, they also still show up to these family gatherings. They may not have a lot to say, but they sit around and they know how important it is to be with family members. You know, and I remember I had these 2 great uncles. We called by their abbreviated Japanese name. Uncle Masato was Uncle Mach, and Uncle, I think they were Hiroshi, but Hiro, right? And we would, you know, and they weren't very big talkers, and they would eat their food at Thanksgiving, and then they go, okay, I'm ready to go home. But then, and actually a couple of times my brother and I were the ones tasked with taking them home. And I sometimes wonder to myself, like, why did they come if they're just going to eat and leave? But at the same time, I'm like, no, they came because they knew that it was important to show up at family events. And that's actually an imprint, and that's actually a lesson that I learned from them as well. Even though they may not have a lot to say, or they're not the flashiest of people, or they don't like to show off, or whatnot, they still show up to family events to support. And even though they are gone, that lesson still remains. So the opening quote that I talk about today, that I did, comes from the teaching of Amida Buddha's Pure Land. When we die and are born in the Pure Land, we don't just stay there and dwell forever in this kind of like forever headed like sandals resort. We're there to become Buddhas and to come back to this world to teach and to lead others to the Pure Land as well. But this means that I still remember these uncles, just as the family members who I did the memorial services for remember their past relatives. And sadly, sometimes, it's not until that relative passes away that we really think about what they meant to the family. It's so easy to take things for granted. This is why doing Thanksgiving is actually a very important holiday. Of course, I love the turkey and I love eating all like the delicious food, but it gives us an opportunity to be grateful for what we still have, who is still here. Who is still here to love us and to cherish us in the time that we have left. And then to think about those who have already gone to the Pure Land before us. And at the same time, even though we are sad that we cannot be physically with these people anymore, we know that they are still with us in Namo Amida Butsu. We know that they are still guiding us with the lessons that they imparted upon us. With my Uncle Mach and Uncle Hiro, I guess one of the lessons they told me was less is more, and you don't need to talk so much. Which is odd because I'm a priest and I have to talk to you as part of my job. But at the same time, my parents told me time and time again, growing up, and yes, I'm talking about this because they're here in the congregation, but growing up, they had to tell me to talk less. Not because they wanted me to just be quiet, but because they needed to teach me not to monopolize conversations. And the fact that not everything is about me, and I'm not the center of the universe, right? That's the kind of lesson. But of course, they're my parents, so I naturally rebel against them or I get mad at them. But when I see other uncles, like Uncle Mach and Uncle Hiro, who were just silent, and because they didn't have, they were able to be themselves without talking loud and being boisterous and showing off, right? That to me was like, wow, leading by example as well. They were able to be themselves, and by the way, both of them, both my Uncle Mach and Uncle Hiro are war heroes. They never talked about that. Okay, both of them fought for the United States during World War II. My Uncle Mach is a recipient of the Purple Heart because of his sacrifice during World War II. My Uncle Hiro bravely served his country and used his knowledge of the Japanese language to serve in the intelligence unit, translating for the United States military. Both men who were wronged by their country, by the way, still served their country valiantly. And yet they never, ever, ever boasted about it. In fact, it took others having to show what they did to really give me a good sense of what they gave to this country. That to me is an example. I love to, it's interesting. You see me up here in my robes, and of course it's what I'm required to wear, right? But I'd be totally honest if I said that there wasn't some pride, like, oh, look at what I earned. But at the same time, I remember my silent uncles who lived by example, who showed up at family gatherings and realized the importance of family. That really makes me think about how I continue to conduct myself as a minister. I may not be perfect. I may not totally, I'm definitely not going to try to copy and emulate them, but their presence in my mind and their presence in my daily life is still a constant presence. It's still part of who I am today. This is what it means to come back from the Pure Land, to guide others as well. Lastly, being able to visit my great-grandparents' grave in Lodi, California, seeing the Sagara Fujimon, this crest on their gravestone, really helps me to feel a deep sense of connection to the religious school that we belong to. Knowing that my great-grandparents, even though I never got to meet them, recited Namo Amida Butsu just as I do now. This is also what it means to come back from the Pure Land. So as we come upon the Thanksgiving holiday, I think about the relatives who have gone before me. And I can't help but think it's a wonderful happenstance that we also, in this month of November, celebrated our Eitaikyo service, where we give our thanks and give honor to those who have given to this temple in the past members who helped make the temple what it is today. We have the names listed behind you in those boards behind the temple here. Those families are more than just names. Those families are more than just numbers and what they donated to the temple. They are part of the foundation as to why the temple is here. And we should not forget that either. So with this in mind, please enjoy your time at Thanksgiving. Think about those who have gone before us and cherish their memories. And in this regard, we are still with them in Namo Amida Butsu. Please join me in Gassho. Second is Amida's directing of virtue for our return to this world. This is the benefit we receive, the state of benefiting and guiding others. It arises from the vow of necessary attainment of the rank next to Buddhahood. Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.